Everyone remembers James Arness from his role as Marshal Matt Dillon on Gunsmoke. Despite his reputation for friendliness and professionalism, he had an ill-fated relationship with one of his co-stars. Things began to heat up as their divergent work styles and communication styles became apparent. This put a damper on their typically entertaining group dynamic. Who was this actor or actress? And why would Arness desire their replacement? The longest-running Western in Hollywood, Gunsmoke also had its fair share of behind-the-scenes controversy. Stay tuned as we explore the implications of this unexpected breakup for one of the most watched television series of all time. It ran for an incredible 20 years, from 1955 to 1975, right in the middle of the golden age of television westerns. Gunsmoke was still at the top of its game even after the genre started to fade, eventually becoming a beloved classic. Viewers couldn't get enough of the show because of its captivating plot and fascinating characters. As time went on and people's tastes evolved, Gunsmoke continued to evolve and become an integral part of popular culture. Every week, families gathered to watch Marshal Matt Dillon dish down justice, solidifying the show's status as a must-watch in television history. It moved from radio to television after starting out on the radio, changing its format to appeal to a wider audience. The show expanded from its original 30-minute black and white format to an hour-long format. Finally, it went to full color, which was a huge improvement in terms of aesthetics. The goal of every adjustment was to maintain interest and novelty. One of the longest-running written dramas, Gunsmoke became a classic. Before launching a popular TV version, the groundbreaking radio series Gunsmoke aired from 1952 to 1961. The compelling tales and accurate portrayal of the Wild West in the radio series earned high praise. In 1955, the radio show made the transition to television, but it continued for another 6 years, further solidifying its position as an entertainment trailblazer. The television series was based on the radio version, so that they maintained a consistent energy. John Wayne initially declined the role of Marshal Matt Dillon. The famous actor was approached about playing the part, but he declined due to the demanding filming schedule. Despite declining the role, Wayne provided Gunsmoke a huge boost by endorsing the show and recording a promotional intro for the pilot. Finally, James Arness took over and made the role his own, making an indelible impression. James Arness was a member of the 3rd Infantry Division in World War II, and he took part in the Allied invasion of Anzio, Italy, before beginning his acting career. His height of 6 feet 7 inches made him an ideal actor for a wide range of parts. Being a 1-2 veteran gave him insight into the challenges that others face in life. Studio executives and screenwriters were on the hunt for a multitasker, and that was certainly the case with him. The Marshal, who he played, encountered numerous obstacles throughout Gunsmoke. There were gun battles, assaults, stabbings, and an instance involving poisoning. After working with James Arness on 4 Gunsmoke films, Amy Stock had little trouble stepping into the part, which was clearly suited for Arness, emphasizing the seamless transition between the Marshal's off-duty state and his on-screen action. He was wearing the Dillon hat, coat, and tennis shoes the first time they met, she recalled. When the directors yelled out, "We're ready for you" on set, he was sitting mindlessly in his chair, still wearing his sneakers. After that, he slipped off his sneakers and slipped on his Western boots. He transformed into Matt Dillon in an instant and raced over to his horse. He was the perfect fit for the part, she said. Amanda Blake was ecstatic when she got the part of Gunsmoke, a Western TV series, when she was in her mid-20s. James Arness, who played Marshal Matt Dillon, was cast opposite her, and she felt lucky to have landed the role of Miss Kitty. The audience went wild over Amanda's portrayal of Dodge City saloon owner, Miss Kitty. Towards the middle of the 1966 season, when the show went from black and white to color, her look really stood out. There were a total of 20 seasons of Gunsmoke, which premiered in 1955 and ran until 1975. Despite Amanda Blake's departure from the role of Miss Kitty in the 19th season, James Arness had a constant presence throughout the entire 20 seasons as Matt Dillon. The authors of the series didn't spend much time exploring the details of Matt and Miss Kitty's relationship, but it was evident that they had a strong bond. Arness suffered with wounds sustained in battle throughout his acting career. The crew of Gunsmoke went out of their way to make him feel more comfortable on set. The action-packed scenes were shot first thing in the morning, before his feet and knees began to ache. In keeping with his character's tenacity, Arness gave his all to his role. Over the course of Gunsmoke's 20 seasons, Arness's arthritis-related ailments deteriorated. So that he could obtain the sleep he needed, the production crew meticulously planned his scenes. Still, he maintained a commanding screen presence throughout, which said much about his dedication and expertise. Matt Dillon's radio voice actor was William Conrad. However, the producers decided he wasn't a suitable match for the television adaptation. James Arness was a more suitable opponent for the valiant Marshal due to his stature and gruff appearance. Regardless, Conrad enjoyed a prosperous career in cinema and television. As Harv Daly, Gary Busey had a noteworthy role in the show's second-to-last season. It was a major event in Gunsmoke's history that he became the last character to die. In the radio version, Miss Kitty Russell initially had a different mood playing the role of Madam. Stricter regulations, however, forced them to tone it down for television. Instead, she was portrayed as a revered proprietor of the Long Branch Saloon. She became more approachable and the show became more engaging as a result of this transformation. The tone for the program was established in the very first scene, which featured Matt Dillon in a gunfight. However, networks advocated for a more moderate stance when anti-violence movements gained momentum in the 1970s. As a result, Gunsmoke updated its opening sequence to reflect modern tastes while retaining the show's fundamental ideas. To make room for new programming, CBS planned to eliminate Gunsmoke in 1967. But in the end, Gilligan's Island was cancelled instead, thanks to the support of management and the outrage from fans. Moving the show to Monday nights didn't hurt its ratings, either. For many years, Gunsmoke was the most watched primetime scripted series of all time, with 635 episodes spread out over 20 seasons. Until The Simpsons broke the record in 2018, this one stood. Whatever the case may be, Gunsmoke is still considered a huge success on television. Although James Arness was generally renowned for being a laid-back co-star, Amanda Blake, who played Miss Kitty Russell, was the one exception. Supposedly, they had considerable friction due to individual disputes and creative disagreements. Blake was a beloved character and an integral part of the program for 19 seasons, but she and Arness had a rocky relationship. In fact, Arness even wanted Blake to quit. Gunsmoke became a classic that many adored despite its flaws. The audience might easily picture a blossoming romance between the two likable protagonists. However, fan theories about their chemistry were wrong. Miss Kitty dispensed cocktails for wild cowboys who occasionally overindulged while dressed stylishly. Additionally, she was there at all times to hear their cowboy stories and provide guidance. It was clear that this depiction did not conform to the standards of a 1955 Sunday school instructor or a decent Western woman. Behind the bar, Miss Kitty even kept a shotgun. She was an extraordinary pioneer woman, full of courage and mystery. When it came time to hire or fire her waitstaff, she had complete control. The females she selected were somewhat more daring and younger than she was. Do you mean the cowboys? They possessed a certain untamed, rough nature. Looking for something more substantial to discuss after getting off the cattle tracks. Despite the obvious closeness of their relationship, Kitty and Matt never publicly showed their admiration for one another. The writers and producers of the show made this decision. They were less interested in over-the-top displays of affection and more on genuine chemistry between the characters. Arness played a tough police officer. His ability to ride a large horse and his accuracy with a gun made him a formidable peacekeeper. While he might not be the ideal spouse. After 20 years of being together, why didn't Matt and Miss Kitty tie the knot? They were obviously head over heels for each other. Did Matt feel embarrassed by Kitty? She spoke her mind and could drink and shoot with the toughest men? Maybe all Dillon wanted was a wife who could stay at home and take care of the kids. James Arness discussed the reasons why Gunsmoke's Kitty and Matt's romance fizzled out. Fans frequently wanted to know why Matt Dillon and Kitty didn't get together, he said in his autobiography. Amanda Blake, he added, was quite guarded about her reputation. The producers, not the actors, were mostly responsible for determining the trajectory of their relationship, according to Arness. That was the decision made by the producers, he said, because going any farther could make things more complicated and maybe even hurt the show's popularity. He implied that spectators, even if they didn't perceive it that way, may find their interest piqued by the relative opacity of their relationship. They thought it would be more interesting to let the audience fill in the gaps, he said, so they downplayed our bond. Despite their platonic relationship on television, Arness and Amanda Blake's camaraderie as actors shone throughout the series. Arness said that the program's success was due in large part to the great casting, and she praised Blake for her role as Russell. In addition to being a wonderful buddy, he said that Blake was an amazing actress. The idea that Kitty could be in danger if her true identity as Matt Dillon's partner became public knowledge was a prevalent rationale. Thus, what exactly was the point of their partnership? Jim Burns, who wrote 34 of the best episodes of the show, remembers that they were quite stealthy. According to him, after the fade-out, there was an unspoken agreement that once the Long Branch closed and Matt Dillon displayed the closed for the night sign, he'd head over to the Long Branch and go upstairs. But we never delved into that. In fact, they engaged in flirting, teasing, hugging, and walked away with their arms around each other. Despite this, they never kissed. James Arness thought the showrunners on purpose left Matt and Kitty's relationship vague. They were careful not to make too many major changes to the show's core characters or plot points. A large quantity of fan letters wanting greater love developments between the two suggested that this tactic was successful. Keeping viewers interested and curious was a primary goal of the makers. Consequently, they maintained this dynamic tension all through the show. He thought it was a brilliant strategy. While the Gunsmoke writers weren't huge fans of the notion of Matt and Kitty getting married, they did anticipate the inevitable drama and temptation that would accompany the nuptials. The 6th episode of Kitty's Outlaw features Ainsley Pryor, a former troublemaker and Kitty's acquaintance, who challenges her allegiance to Matt. While Matt is preoccupied in Season 8's The Way It Is, Claude Aiken steps in for Kitty, and in Season 9's Cotter's Girl, an orphan named Mariette Hartley develops a strong crush on Matt despite his best efforts to aid her. Season 12 sees the return of Sarah, played by Anne Francis, who had previously been Matt's romantic interest. She's trying to win him back while running an illicit way station. In the 15th season's The Badge, Kitty has finally had enough of watching Matt get shot 11 times. She sells the Long Branch, uproots her life, and forms a business partnership with Beverly Garland in a different location. Matt and Kitty's relationship seemed to shift in 1973. Miss Michael Learned, who became famous for her part in The Waltons, played the character of Matt's romantic interest in a plot where he has memory loss. As their romance grows, Matt finally gets a kiss, which is out of the ordinary for him. But Matt returns to Miss Kitty after he remembers. Curiously, a television movie rehashed this plot point 17 years later. A kidnapping occurs when the character of Miss Learned in Matt's child is abducted. Matt sets out to find his child with the help of another character. To add insult to injury, the other character expresses an interest in marrying Miss Learned's character, echoing the romantic tension that had previously existed between Matt and Kitty. A man who encounters Miss Kitty in a later season defends her during a stagecoach robbery and gets harmed in the process. An intense discussion ensues with Matt after this man proposes to her. Kitty opens out about her feelings for Matt and their history together. She considers the possibility of their connection growing into something more, but she also recognizes the limitations of their current situation. Surprisingly, Amanda Blake's final appearance as Miss Kitty was that season. She was married and now lived in Arizona, but she was finding the frequent travel tough, and she and producer John Mantley often had arguments. The clothes that Blake wore were the source of their major disagreement. Mantley had not set aside any funds for new clothes for Blake for a long time, but Miss Kitty was supposed to look lovely at all times. She wanted a new clothing before they could go any farther, but Mantley said no. He would later confess, "It was the biggest mistake I ever made." The subsequent 19 years were truly extraordinary, culminating in the production of an enduringly popular Western television series. The Gunsmoke set was like being at home, according to Amanda Blake. She felt a sense of belonging on set, so she continued to spend time there even on her days off after her first divorce in 1956. From 1955 until 1974, Blake didn't have a big film career, but she was a regular on TV shows including The Love Boat, Tattletales, Match Game, The Dean Martin Comedy Roasts, The Red Skelton Show, and Alfred Hitchcock Presents. She wed Jason Seymour Day for a second time in 1964, but they got a divorce in 1967. Quickly following her 1967 marriage to Frank Gilbert, her third husband, and they stayed married until 1982. Amanda has knowledge of the mechanics of the show as well. Her account suggests that the writers of Gunsmoke made a conscious decision not to include a love plot involving Matt Dillon and Miss Kitty. Romance, they reasoned, would detract from the show's traditionally Western vibe and turn off some viewers. Despite the tired Western trope that heroes care more about their horses than women, Blake played it straight and assured everyone that Dillon's affections for Kitty were stronger than any attachment he had ever had to his horse. Using the universal appeal of the Old West, she said, Gunsmoke was made to appeal to a wide range of people. There wasn't much room for love stories because of how much attention was on the past. Despite the lack of explicit love sequences in the show, Blake encouraged viewers to fantasize about a future in which Kitty and the Marshal were romantically involved. After playing Jim Bowie in The Alamo, 13 Days to Glory, Arness starred in How the West Was Won in McLean's Law, 2 police dramas. The Gunsmoke actors did, however, reunite in 1987. Gunsmoke went back to Dodge, wrote by Jim Burns, when John Mantley reintroduced Amanda for the first TV movie. The 1975 season finale of Gunsmoke was underwhelming. Not only was the show's demise unexpected, but it also left viewers hanging. In contrast to modern TV shows that frequently plot heartfelt farewells, Gunsmoke ended with a mundane episode. Nevertheless, because to reruns and the fond recollections of its devoted followers, its legacy lives on.